This is Neurodivergent Faith, a podcast exploring the sacred beauty and honest challenges at the intersection of neurodivergence and Christian faith. Whether you're neurodivergent yourself, or a friend, family member, ministry leader, or seeker hoping to understand more, you're in the right place. Here we speak plainly about mental health and spirituality. We name the stereotypes and misunderstandings that still show up in our churches. We ask hard questions and resist pat answers. We listen to the lived experiences of neurodivergent Christians. Here we learn and grow together. Your host, Josh Davis, is autistic, ADHD, a spiritual director, and an ordained pastor. Josh invites you into honest conversations about the unique ways neurodivergent people encounter God through scripture, worship, special interests, attention, and communication differences, and so much more. So take a deep breath. You are welcome here, just as you are.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Neurodivergent Faith, a space where our whole selves are welcome and where questions are holy and where the messy, miraculous work of being human meets the presence of God. I'm your host, Josh, and today I want to tell you a story. This is not a polished, triumphant story, but a real one, a raw one. It's a story about my own autistic shutdown, about exhaustion, and about longing for sanctuary, but instead finding yourself in a war zone. This story is in several parts. We'll begin with Act 1, the buildup. This story didn't begin on the day of the shutdown. It actually started earlier in the week. There were difficult conversations, trying to navigate communication differences with people I care about, and not coming to any resolution. That functions in me like an open tab on my computer, and it just drains the battery of my energy and my attention. I also earlier in the week felt caught between roles, my natural inclination as a spiritual companion and my responsibilities as a representative of an organization on the other side. I was holding space for others, while also holding secrets about transitions not yet made public, and that is taxing. I had an ocular migraine that was very distressing. If you're not familiar, it's where your vision goes blurry, and then there's these patterns of light in one eye that just keep flashing and moving, and all I can do is just lay down, get in a low sensory environment, and give my body time to regulate. I also noticed in the buildup that there was less movement than normal for me. There was less time to walk. And walking is like oxygen for my nervous system. I walk 6 to 7 miles a day and have for years now. And walking is so many things for me, but it helps get some of my energy out. It's actually one of my stems. It's regulating. It's space away from people. I usually walk by myself. I'm usually pretty unmasked when I walk, so I'm not having to monitor my facial expressions. I walk with noise-canceling AirPods in, and so I'm kind of in a world by myself, and that's incredibly regulating for me and life-giving for me. And because of some different scheduling things, and then also because of weather, I wish I lived in a place where the weather was consistent. I have threatened to move to a place where it's consistently sunny and kind of the same temperature most of the year, but I don't. And so, there was a lot of rain, and that messed with my walking schedule. And, for most people, that must just sound like, well, that's just life, right? Those are minor stressors. But for me as a neurodivergent person, I actually find that these are significant factors that contribute to my well-being or to my lack of well-being. And the truth is that autistic and ADHD nervous systems are often operating near the edge of capacity. Not because we're weak or fragile, but because the world isn't built for the way we process, the way we feel, the way we move, the way we relate to others. I've heard somebody talk about how it's like walking around as an exposed nerve, and you're just picking up on so many things all the time, right? So when rest gets compromised and when emotional labor piles up, and when there are all these open tabs of things that are unresolved, and when routines are disrupted and sensory input ramps up, the cost accumulates. And all of that set the stage for what came next. Actually, the day of my shutdown started beautifully. I was leading a spiritual pilgrimage for a few people that I offer spiritual direction to. These are some amazing people, wise, compassionate ministry leaders. And we walked through the past and present spaces of their church. We paused, we prayed, we reflected, we had great conversations. It was spacious and it was unhurried and it was filled with deep one-on-one conversations and gentle movement. And that felt like me. I felt at home in my own skin. I sensed the presence of God very close, God with us. And then I came home. And in the span of a few minutes, it felt like the ground underneath me began to shift. In a few minutes, I became aware of unexpected visitors, changed plans, conversations that I thought were settled suddenly were up in the air again and they were being reinterpreted by someone else, and agreements that I thought had been fixed and clear, they had gotten reimagined without me. And I know it wasn't malicious. I'm absolutely sure there was no malintent, but it was incredibly disorienting and destabilizing. And for me, as an autistic person, unpredictability is not just inconvenient, it is destabilizing. I need consistency, not just as a preference, but this is actually what I need for a felt sense of safety. And when I've scaffolded my day, my goodness, do I scaffold my day? I do it in advance, and then the morning of, I also look at all I have to do, and I measure my energy, and I measure the flow, and I scaffold the day emotionally, mentally, energetically. And when I've already scaffolded my day and planned accordingly, then even the smallest shifts can bring the whole structure down. And what happened to me that day is because these other things that were out of my control shifted, it felt like my day was ruined. It felt like the plans that I had for myself for the day didn't matter. There wasn't going to be any chance of goodness for the rest of the day. Suddenly, I wasn't in a place of rest anymore. I was calculating, I was managing, I was rescuing, I was suppressing. I remember I really wanted to cry and scream. I really wanted to run. Those would be more meltdown behaviors. I tend to have more shutdowns, which is kind of like an internalized meltdown. It's one way to think about it. So I wanted to do all of these kind of big expressions. I wanted to disappear, but I stayed and I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't run. I did end up taking a nap, and then when I woke up, I felt like I'd been run over by a truck. I rarely nap, so it's a sign. If the only thing I can think of to do is nap, that's a sign that I'm real close to the edge, if not already over the edge. And so I stayed and I kept doing the things that I needed to do that day, and that honestly cost me more than anyone could see. Act 2, the war zone. That evening, I gathered with my spiritual community. I had to lead worship, almost 2 hours of music on a metal chair in a crowded space. And the very space that's supposed to be sacred felt like a war zone to my nervous system. People I love were talking to me, and all I could do was nod and smile and mask. Their words were drowned out by background noise that no one else seemed to notice, but it felt like knives in my ears. And I'm trying to not let my face react to the pain of the background noise. I'm trying to just focus my eyes on the person's mouth so that I can not only hear the words that they're saying, but like connect the sounds with what's actually coming out of their mouth to really try to focus in on them and what they're actually saying. But it took all of my energy. And by the time I finished leading, my skin was on fire. My legs, my hands, my head, it all burned and itched. The very space, the spiritual space where I was supposed to feel held, I actually had to escape from. And I want to name this for what it is. Even if it's unintentional, and even if it's no one's fault, this is trauma. This is harm. The place that's supposed to be a sanctuary feels like a war zone for my nervous system. See, my autistic sensitivity doesn't care whether the context is a positive spiritual or social environment or not. I still get overwhelmed by sound, plans changing, texture, pressure, unspoken social norms, unpredictability, and more. And I know this is true not just for me, but for many neurodivergent people, especially in the church. We show up to spaces that promise belonging and connection, but we encounter expectations, sensory overwhelm, and social scripts that leave us feeling raw and fractured. And this creates a kind of soul-deep confusion. A space that is meant to be life-giving becomes the very place that wounds, that drains, that disorients. My brain says, you should feel safe here. My body says, we are not safe here. And that mismatch is traumatic. In psychological terms, it could be called betrayal trauma. When a person or environment that is supposed to be protective or nurturing becomes a source of harm or distress, and especially when it's unacknowledged. And in those moments, like what happened to me that night, my nervous system is screaming. I can't always explain what's happening. I had no access to words to try to explain it to anyone, so I just exited. I put in my noise-canceling AirPods. I walked around. I paced in circles. I flapped my arms. I listened to music, and I kept myself just barely from a full meltdown or shutdown. And I recognize, looking back, that too is sacred. That's my sacred way of staying present instead of disappearing entirely. It is sacred care for myself and for others as I stave off a complete meltdown. I'm caring for others, but no one is even aware of what I'm dealing with. I don't know if you can hear it or not, but someone in my household is playing the piano right now, and just going to leave this in. Hopefully you can hear my voice clearly enough, but it's just a reality of being in a neurodivergent household. Sometimes some people need to make noise while other people need quiet, and that's a really hard thing to figure out how to navigate. So let's move on. Part 3, the crash. Later that night, I tried to rest, but sleep didn't come easily at all. My heart was racing, my mind was spinning, and by the next morning, I was in full shutdown. I had no motivation to do anything. I couldn't speak. It was a complete flattening of my emotional landscape. And here's what's cruel. Even in that state, when all I've done is do my best to survive, the old shame still whispers. I hear words in my head like lazy or too sensitive, failure. And for a long time, I believed those voices. They ran deep in my subconscious. But now I know my true identity. I know that those labels never belonged to me in the first place. They never came from God. They came from a world that misunderstands what it means to live inside a neurodivergent body and mind. So this time, when the words whispered, I held my ground internally. I countered each one with kindness and compassion, and I named the truth. I was doing my best to survive. I was caring for my body, my mind, my soul, my heart. But that doesn't make it easy. Still, when I'm in shutdown, the tasks are piling up. My calendar doesn't wait. I am super scheduled. Every moment of 5 days a week is completely scheduled, and the tasks just don't wait. And the ADHD pressure kicks in. The backlog looms, and this task list starts to whisper threats of what tomorrow is going to be like because I can't bring myself to engage today. And it's like this mixture of urgency and executive paralysis. It is so strong inside me, it is a force to be reckoned with. So I reckon. This time, not by pushing through, but by naming what's real. This time, not by total withdrawal, but by actually bringing some people into what I was experiencing. I texted my coworkers and my family. Here's what I said. Just wanted to give you all a heads up that I'm in a pretty big autistic shutdown. I felt it coming on yesterday, but pushed through, and it is now all encompassing. It feels like it's me against the entire world. My goal is to withdraw enough and not speak, so I'm ready to teach tomorrow and show up for responsibilities later today. If I don't answer communication for a day or two, this is why. I wanted to tell you so that you can know not to expect much from me today and tomorrow. And if you don't know what an autistic shutdown is, here's a basic article. And I included a link. And that act of naming it was sacred. And it opened some things up. It did not solve the issue, but it did open some things up. Part 4. The repair. What happened next was quiet, but beautiful. My autistic colleague sent me a message. No pressure, no questions, no need to respond. Just, quote, I appreciate and recognize the courage it took to create and share the space you need. I've never felt brave enough to do that myself. My wife, because we've had a lot of conversations and really invested in understanding one another, she got it. She validated my need for silence in our family text stream. She made my safe breakfast food, an everything bagel with cream cheese, garlic salt, and Italian seasoning, and she left it at the door of my office. That small act felt like care. And later that day, I walked to my favorite restaurant. And as I was walking, I was thinking, I'm not going to be able to speak when I get to my restaurant. What options do I have? I had never done this before, but I decided to risk and to try something new. So I typed a note into my phone. Hi, I'm in autistic shutdown and I can't speak. I'd like to order. And then I shared my order. I held my phone up to the cashier. They smiled. They understood. No awkwardness, just kindness. And as I sat eating my food, I just was overwhelmed by gratefulness that I was able to be in that space in the middle of a shutdown and have access to my safest safe food, which is there at that restaurant. And I posted some gratitude and tagged the restaurant on Instagram. And later they reposted my gratitude with the words, "We love our regulars, World Autism Acceptance," and some hearts. And to be honest, I was deeply moved, because that is what sanctuary can be. Not a place where we're expected to be fine, but a place where our silence, our needs, our shutdowns can be met with gentleness, with kindness, with the desire to understand. Part 5, a story from Scripture. There's a story that I've been holding for the last several years. Just keeps rolling around in my mind and heart. It keeps coming back to me over and over again. It's the story of Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane. Jesus, Son of God, Son of Man, fully divine, fully human, enters the garden and says to his closest friends, "My soul is overwhelmed to the point of death. Stay here. Keep watch with me." Jesus asks for what he needs. He names his anguish. He weeps. He prays. He even pleads for another way. And his friends, they fall asleep. They don't meet his need. They don't do what he asked. They do not watch with him. And yet, Jesus does not shame them. He names it. He grieves. But he remains in truth and he remains in love. And he asks again. This story speaks to me something very profound. Asking for what we need, even if others can't meet it or won't meet it. Asking for what we need is not weakness. It is one way we can be like Jesus. It is Christ-like. It is sacred. It is honest. And Jesus, who is overwhelmed in the garden, is present when we are overwhelmed too. In our silence, in our shutdown, in the places we expected to be safe, but instead found a war zone. Jesus is with us. I've got a few reflection questions for you, just for you to ponder. For those of you who are listening who are neurodivergent, what are the signs that you're approaching shutdown? This is hard for me because I don't often see the signs until I'm at like a 9 or a 10, or maybe even an 11, stress-wise. But what are the signs that you're approaching shutdown? You might begin to just notice those. You might even journal about it after the fact and recreate the scenario. That's what I did this time, and I was able to trace some of the signs backwards. And then once you notice what some of those signs are, you might share those with some of the people closest to you so that they can be looking for those signs too. They might be able to bring them to your attention when you might not recognize them for yourself. Number 2, how do you care for your body and spirit in those moments? Whether it's meltdown, shutdown, long seasons of burnout, how do you care for your body and your spirit in those moments? And lastly, what boundaries do you need, even if others don't fully understand them? What do you need to ask for, even if you might not receive it? And listen, I know how painful it is to ask for something and then not receive it. It, in some ways, feels worse than if I hadn't asked in the first place. And Jesus knows what this feels like too. What I've found for myself is when I ask, no matter how the other person responds, Just by asking, I'm building trust with myself. I'm sending a message to myself that I will advocate for myself, that I will ask for what I need because I believe that I'm worth it, whether I receive it or not, whether people know what to do with the ask or not. For those of you who are listening who are walking alongside neurodivergent friends or family members, here are a few questions for you. Number one, are you willing to believe someone's experience even if you don't understand it? And if not, I'd encourage you to get curious about why not. Number two, can you offer care in those moments that doesn't require words? Sometimes processing words, whether that is receiving them or giving them, can be really challenging in those moments for neurodivergent folk. Can you offer care that doesn't require words? And number three, what kind of sanctuary are you helping to build? In the spaces where you are with neurodivergent brothers and sisters in Jesus, you don't have to be a leader in those spaces, but you have the opportunity to help build a space of sanctuary in those spaces. What kind of sanctuary are you helping to build? To close today, I'd like to offer us a blessing. I speak these words over myself and over you. May the God who sees in silence be near to you when your words disappear. May your nervous system find gentleness. May your body find space to be. And may your heart remember you are loved, not for what you do, but simply for who you are. May your next shutdown not lead to shame, but to sacred restoration. May you find sanctuary in the silence, strength in the stillness, and kindness in unexpected places. You are not lazy. You are not too much. You are beloved, even here and even now. Amen.
Thank you for joining us here at Neurodivergent Faith, a space where you don't have to mask or explain, where your real questions are welcome and your presence is enough. If today's episode stirred something in you, if you felt seen, challenged, or comforted, we'd love for you to share it with a friend, leave a review, or simply linger with it a little longer. You are fearfully and wonderfully made in God's image. May you know that full well.